This video covers material about alternative energy and renewable energy sources. The material presented was originally developed by Brett Blevins and modified and narrated by Alan Rodriguez. This video is made possible by the National Science Foundation funded project Boat of Knowledge in the Science Classroom at Ohio University. So, I have a question for you. Do you know what is that the term alternative energy means? Or do you know the importance of these alternative energy sources? Can you name examples of alternative energy sources? If you answer no to any of these questions, or even if you feel you should review these concepts, then I invite you to study and review with me the presentation titled Alternative Energy: Engineering a Better Green and Sustainable Future. Now, in order to better understand the impact that alternative energy sources have, it's important to understand first what is the main fuel utilized nowadays and how is this type of fuel utilized. Now, I will ask you a question. What is the main source of energy utilized today? Do you know? Well, I'll tell you. The main source of energy nowadays are fossil fuels. Now, join me as I discuss with you how are these crude oils obtained. So here's our beautiful world. Believe it or not, the earth is full of these fossil fuels or crude oils way below where our feet are standing right now. The crude oil can be retrieved from kilometers under the earth's surface or miles down the sea bottoms. So you might be asking, if it's so far down, how do we know there's something there? Well, geologists and scientists have everything figured out. By utilizing advanced engineering and modeling computer systems, it's easy for them to study the Earth from inside out. So, utilizing these systems, and with their knowledge as scientists, they can estimate, predict, and know areas where these fossil fuels can be found. Once they have found the oil source, which is a process that can take years, then they get very, very happy. The question is, why do they get happy? Well, because they just hit the jackpot. And from a single good source of crude oil, they can obtain millions and billions of dollars worth of revenues. So, what they do once they have found these crude oil sources? So they go out to sea and build these multi-million-dollar stations known as oil rigs with the only purpose of extracting those oils from below the surface. They do this either at sea or at land. I bet you've seen this structure before, right? So, now, what do they do with this extracted oil? Well, they take the retrieved crude oil to these facilities, which I bet you've seen before, am I right? Can you tell me the name of these facilities? Well, this is a petroleum refinery. I don't know about you, but I always wonder, what were those huge towers or tall towers that you can see in a petroleum refinery? Do you know? Well, those are what chemical engineers have designed and called distillation columns. Check out what they do there. So here's a distillation column in a petroleum refinery. As you can see at the bottom, which is where the crude oil is entering, the temperature is really high. Therefore, the components of the crude oil that has boiling points below that temperature will evaporate. If you notice also, as the column height goes up, the temperature drops throughout its length. So as you can expect, once the evaporated components reach a section in the column with a lower temperature than its boiling temperature, the component will condensate and exit. Like this, chemical engineers can separate the crude oil into its components. If you like, you can pause the video and take a look at some of the materials that can be extracted from a petroleum refinery column and their temperature ranges. Now, this beautiful process that creates a billion-dollar company and the use of these fossil fuels to obtain energy has a downside. When we burn the fossil fuel or the fossil fuel derived fuels, we're forming carbon dioxide, which is dangerous to our beautiful Earth as it promotes the Can you guess? Global warming, which is a big deal and it's something we need to control. Because of this, it has been of extreme importance to engineers and scientists to look for alternate forms to obtain useful energy. In response to that, we have managed to discover and use what we know as alternative energy or alternative energy sources. So this is basically an alternate renewable way of obtaining energy. Utilizing these renewable sources help decrease the effects of our global warming, protecting, therefore, not only our species but the Earth as a whole. Renewable energy comes from natural resources such as sunlight, wind, rain, tides, biomass, geothermal heat, all of which are naturally replenished. Now, let's look at some alternative energy sources. So geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is thermal energy stored in Earth. So how does it work? In the winter, the ground is a lot much warmer than the air, even only a few meters beneath the surface. So cold water is then pumped through the underground coils where it is naturally warmed by the earth. This heat is then transferred to the living space of a house. Cool, right? There's also solar energy. You've probably seen these solar panels before. So the sun provides enough energy in 1 minute to supply the world's energy need for 1 year. Too bad we cannot harness it all. In 1 day, it provides more energy than our current population will consume in 27 years. The amount of solar radiation striking the Earth over a 3-day period is equivalent to the energy stored in all fossil energy sources. So now, if the sun is so awesome, what is the main problem with solar energy? Well, the main problem is the disposal of solar cells. Some of these cells are constructed with some materials that once is going to be disposed of, it may damage the environment. There's also hydropower. I believe you've seen this type of form of source of energy, especially in ancient boats. What was the first type of hydropower used in the world? Do you know? If you don't, then I invite you to figure it out. It's a really fun fact. The production of electricity using the gravitational force of falling water is known as hydroelectricity or hydropower. So it is the most widely used form of renewable energy. In 2006, 20% of the world's electricity came from hydropower. This accounted for 88% of all renewable energy sources. So how does it work? Basically, the water entered through a high-pressure tube, and this high-pressure tube moved turbine blades. And by moving the turbine blades, they're generating indirectly electricity. There's also, and finally, in our examples, wind energy. So in this case, electricity is generated by the flow of air. So when the wind blows and moves the blades of the fan, a generator generates current, and this current can be utilized in your home. So that is for today. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I invite you to contribute toward preserving our home, Earth.